Okay, if you're just here for a form video, I'm gonna hit play. We're gonna watch Jenna do some reps. I'll talk about the execution, and then if you wanna stick around afterwards, I'm gonna do a longer video about the setup of this exercise, how we chose the cable height, the bench height, all of that stuff. So the biggest cue that I want people to focus on when they're doing this movement is driving the elbow down, not back. And so if you do that, you will end up with your arm in line with your torso. And so I'll slow it down in a second, but I want you to watch Jenna's downward intent. She is thinking about pulling down to her pocket, not back behind her body. And so let's rewind a little bit, and I want to slow it down a little bit. If you look here, when she's at this fully stretched position, you will see that this elbow moves downward to begin this movement. It moves down, right? It moves down. Moves down. She's not thinking about rowing it into her upper back, rowing it into her collarbone. She's thinking about pulling this elbow down to her pocket here. That is the best way for us to work the lats and not the upper back, and that is the point of this exercise. Now, the biggest mistake I will see people do in this exercise is they will set up the cable height too high. And so I want you to look very carefully. The way we are set up for this movement is with our arms out in front of the body, not directly overhead. Our arms are out in front of the body, not directly overhead. The biggest mistake I will see is that the cable height is too high and that your arms are directly overhead. When we do that, the lats lose their leverage to contribute really optimally to this movement, and it becomes more of like an upper back exercise. Not bad, but not what we want. And so what I will say is if you have a cable setup like this functional trainer where you can move the cable height, I want you on a 60-degree bench. That's usually one notch below upright. If you are at a station where the cable is stuck at the top and you cannot move it, and you can't go to a functional trainer, this is the only place you can do this exercise, then I want you on a 90-degree bench. That will help you keep your arms out in front of your body, right? If you can't move the cable angle and you do a 60-degree bench, your arms are inevitably gonna go overhead. So how did we pick this bench angle and this cable height? How did we figure that out for her? So I'm gonna show you guys a little drill to assess what's called the active range of your lats, which is basically the highest you can bring your arms before your lats lose their ability to contribute. And so what you're gonna do is you're gonna sit down in your bench, whether that's the 60-degree or the 90-degree, depending on the cable station, and you're going to just gently squeeze the bench, just so that you can mimic the width that your arms will be when you're doing the movement. So you're gonna bring your arms together so that they're touching the pad of the bench here on the sides. And you're gonna slowly raise your arms, and you're gonna think about this stretch in your lats. And eventually what's gonna happen is if you're paying attention, you're going nice and slow, you're gonna end up getting to like a sticking point where Jenna gets here. And if you watch it in real time, she ends up getting to the sticking point. You'll see her, she's getting to the sticking point, she's raising nice and slow, keep going, keep going, keep going. She gets to this point where she can't really raise any higher. That is the end of her lats active range of motion. And really quickly, what we would do is we would just bring the cable down to this height. So we would draw a straight line from her arm to the cable, and that's where we would put the cable, and we would be good to go. For academic purposes, I tell her to go even higher just to feel what that would feel like, and I welcome you guys to do that as well. And so I have her go even further overhead, and what happens is she starts to feel that her shoulder blades and her upper back erectors, her upper back starts to extend backwards. And what ends up happening is you feel a difference. Her arms actually move a little bit wider, and you feel that tension leave the lats. And the biggest mistake I will see people make is lining up like this with the cable directly overhead and trying to pull down from here. That is not what we want. I want your arms somewhere in this range where they are out in front of the body, right? So after she went all the way up, I decided we would just start again. And so we start from the bottom, nice and slow, bringing the arms up, bringing the arms up, bringing the arms up, bringing the arms up until we get to that sticking point, which is about here. And then we're gonna bring the cable down. Now, I'm here to help Jenna, so I just bring the cable down to help, but let's say you're not here, just estimate. Look where your arms are, point to that spot on the cable, and then bring the cable down, and then video yourself, send it to me, or just assess it yourself. And I mean, if you can assess it in terms of it being out in front of the body, not overhead, if you want it to be a little bit more nitpicky, I'm happy to do that. And so she's stuck right here. This is her sticking point, and say, okay, leave your arms there. I'm gonna bring the cable down. Now, the cable is on number 1. I just want to be clear with you guys. I move it down about 6 or 7 notches, like a significant amount. And so now she'll get up, she'll grab the cables, and we'll watch her do some reps from there. Before we start, just take a look at this position. Her arms are out in front of the body, not directly overhead. That is the biggest mistake people will make. And if you are torn between two cable heights, you're like, oh, I should be on number 5 or number 6, or number 6 or number 7. Pick the lower option of the two. It is better for you to be slightly too low than slightly too high. I would rather people be slightly too low than slightly too high, and we can work from there. If you are too high, you take the lats out of the movement, not almost entirely, but to a significant degree. If you're too low, then you just shift the tension to a different part of your lats. It's still lats. And so from here, we kind of reference that elbow down technique, driving the elbow down, not back. Your arm will end up in line with your torso. All good stuff. Other things with her setup or her execution here, I like this position with your head into the bench. It discourages the kind of upper back extension that kind of takes the lats out of it. If you're not grossed out, I like this position the best. What you do with your feet is really up to you. I don't mind if your feet are out in front. I don't mind if your feet are behind you. Jenna has like some weird staggered stance here that works just fine, and so I'm not too concerned with that. There's no right or wrong. I care way more about two things: that the cable height is at a place where your arms are not directly overhead, that they are slightly out in front, and that you use a downward angle, that you are pulling with a downward intent. That's what I care about most. All right, if you have a question, I'll see you guys in the group.